live stream. You know how it is. Fucking living in New Hampshire, struggling. Pretty normal fare for anybody that's in this state. You get it. Yeah, it's a just rare moment that I actually had a chance to sit down and do a live. So here we are. Let's see. On the agenda for today, is just like a couple things that I kind of wanted to address. Stuff that's happened. Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy holidays. Like good shit. So I've put out some content recently that very much so focuses on the CD1 rate. I am not CD1. I just care about all the races in the state. That's the thing. Because whether I like it or not, the entire delegation represents this state. So that's sad. But I have to, at the very least, talk about Maggie Goodlander because she is the one that I actually get to cast votes. And geographically speaking, CD2 is a bit more area. So I'm doing this mainly because Maggie Goodlander just made an appearance on another podcast in the state that has a lot more support than mine does, which is I just accept that into my understanding of how things work. This channel is not for everybody, and I get that. But it's important to provide maybe a little bit of counter to what happened on this podcast appearance. And again, it's like I'm gonna be critical. I don't hate anybody. I don't think anybody should be deplatformed. I don't know none of that crap. I think it's important to provide some pushback here or there when it's warranted, because we get a little bit cooked if we don't, provide a little bit of extra context for things as they happen. So yeah, we'll start out with that. We got sort of like a situation happening with Jon Kiper that I'll talk about, and we'll see where it goes from there. At any rate, I suppose I'll get started on this and do some super ultra rare React content. For anybody that has talked to me about content creation, you'll know that I, generally speaking, find React content to be low-hanging fruit, because it doesn't take a lot of effort to just see something and have a reaction or a response to it. That's like, it's fairly easy to do. I'm a lot more generally interested in going for like an interview where we create something totally original and try and ask people questions that other content creators or news or whatever they're not gonna do, or actually do some research and try and highlight some things that are otherwise generally not talked about. All that said, let's dive into this silliness here. So let's go. I did check this out earlier, but I feel like I'm just gonna have a whole new fresh interpretation of what happened. So get it.
I heard a rumor, actually, that you have listened to the podcast before and that you listened to an episode that had Nico Papakonstantis on it about select boards and property taxes and deliberative sessions. And my first question for you is, isn't Nico incredible? Isn't he a wonderful human being?
He really is. I mean, I'm not a person who listens to many podcasts at all, but I get to drive a lot these days. My husband said to me, you should just look for a podcast that interests you. So I immediately found yours. It's the
Oh my
first podcast I
God.
really listened to.
Okay, well, I actually have the only podcast. There are no other podcasts out there.
Okay. Okay. I guess this is what we're doing. Fun.
You're listening to New Hampshire Has Issues, and I am your host, Liz Canada. And even though I say this a whole bunch in the episode, I am so honored that Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander came onto my podcast and that she is a listener of the podcast. I suddenly feel an overwhelming amount of pressure. Not that I already didn't think about that with you as a listener, even if you are not a congressperson. But if you know a congressperson who should listen to the show, send them a link. We covered a lot of ground in this episode. We talked about the U.S. Constitution. We talked about war powers. We talked about gerrymandering. We talked about term limits. We talked about what a discharge petition is. We talked about John McCain. We talked about post offices. We talked about the Epstein files. This is the weirdest sentence I have ever said
sounds like it's going to hit at the beginning of this
which
episode.
Feels especially fitting in 2025. I am wishing 2025 goodbye forever, though I have loved making this podcast, and it will continue in 2026. I have a lot of guests already recorded, and I'm going to spend my holiday break getting those ready. And I have a lot more queued up with interviews in January and February. But if you have an idea for an episode, send me an email, newhampshireHasIssues@gmail.com. And if you would like to be a monthly supporter, of which I would be incredibly grateful, you can visit patreon.com/NHHasIssues. Thank you to Seacoast Soils, who sponsors this podcast. But most of all, thank you for listening.
Damn, getting sponsored. Like, wild. For anybody that doesn't know, like, this channel right here that I'm doing has 0 sponsors, and I anticipate that I will never get any sponsors, and I'm kind of okay with that because I don't want anybody like in my pocket. You know what I'm saying? I don't have monetization on TikTok. Part of the reason this is not even live on TikTok is I don't even have a follower count to go live on TikTok. Like, this is real shit. Anywho,
whether you're a congressperson or someone I know and have coffee with regularly, or we've never met, and I'm just a voice in your headphones or your car or your kitchen, and you don't even know what I look like. Thank you for listening. All right, I'm going to pass it back over to me. I'm so honored that you've listened to this podcast. Thank you so much.
And in fact, today I was sitting with a select board member from another town, and I said, you've got to listen to the podcast with Nico, and you've got to get on this podcast because you know this because in your town you see it, that the voter turnout for our town meetings, for really anything at the local level, it's just we need people to show up and to really be engaged at every level, that it all fits together in such critical ways that we've got to hang on to it.
Absolutely. And serving on the select board, you know, my wife is on the select board here in Exeter, and it's a big commitment to do, but it's so incredibly important because
so that's actually pretty real right there. Which, like, I'll give credit where credit's due. Nobody shows up to meetings. No, like, it's so bad. Our voter turnout, our voter engagement is stupid low in this state, especially considering how incredibly politically active it is. Like, the amount of people that don't show up to like a town meeting or something, fucking bonkers. So, you know, fair point right there.
Our state is really run by volunteers in a lot of ways, people who step up to serve and want to make their communities a little bit better and a little bit stronger. So thank you for listening to that episode and any other episodes that you have. I should do your intro, though. I'm going to take a deep breath because this is quite the bio that I have in front of me. My guest today has been a naval officer, a foreign policy advisor to John McCain, a law clerk on the United States Supreme Court. She has served as counsel on the House Judiciary Committee during the first impeachment of Donald Trump. She was an attorney at the Department of Justice during the Biden administration. She was a senior White House advisor. She taught constitutional law. And now she's a member of the U.S. House of Representatives for New Hampshire's 2nd District. Welcome to the show, the abundantly qualified for pretty much everything, Maggie Goodlander. Congresswoman, holy smokes, I'm so honored that you're here. Thank you for being on the show.
I'm so thrilled to be here.
Dude, that's such an incredible amount of glaze. Like, imagine just being that hyped up. Like, qualified for everything. Really? That's interesting. I don't like go ahead and make those assumptions about any of the candidates that I've interviewed. There's a high likelihood that most of them are bad at something. Love you guys totally, but let's be honest, not qualified for everything. Okay? Woo. That's bananas. That's absolutely bananas. If you are starting out an interview in this way, it shows that should be a signal to anybody that there will be literally zero pushback at all. Like nothing. There's like worship the ground you walk on type of media doesn't need to be playing a like a permission structure for people in this particular way. If the attitudes line up, that's fine, but like you got to actually get into policy points. You got to actually talk about what matters on an issue by issue basis. You can't just jump out of the gate like this. I don't want to disrespect New Hampshire has issues, but I cannot concur with that just straight out of the gate, just total just blind worshiping of a candidate, right? Like politicians are tools, okay? Like and I again, like they're people, but they are in their job, they are tools to implement policy. We have culture that's separate from politics that can define all of these other parameters for us. We do not need our politicians to be generating culture in this way. That's not their job. Their job is to go and create and vote for policy positions that will advance the productivity and quality of life that Americans experience. That's it, right? It's not there. The performance stuff is just straight bullshit. So anyways, okay, why do I feel like this is going to take way too long?
I cannot put into words how excited I am that you're here. Let's start with a simple question. You know, I've done episodes about the New Hampshire House and Senate, the governor, the executive council, whatever that is. But my simple question for you, Congresswoman, is what the heck is Congress? What do you all do in Congress? Help me and help the listener understand. I was terrible in high school in civics, so give me the breakdown. What is Congress?
Well, Congress, the word itself means, it's got Latin roots, it means a coming together. The Congress, in many ways, I really believe that New Hampshire is the state that created the United States of America. We were the 9th to ratify our Constitution, but it really was the Congress that the roots of this Congress that I serve in now that were at the forefront of declaring independence, that really helped to forge the country that we are now working every day to continue, this really fragile experiment. But the Congress, what I'd say to your listeners, I'm going to make a pitch for reading the Constitution, because it takes 30 minutes, but even if you just started with Article 1, it's a great read, and it really gives you the essential foundations of what Congress does. You know, we've got 2 houses of Congress, just as we do in the New Hampshire legislature. the House and the Senate. And the House is the first institution that the United States Constitution creates. So the idea was the world had never known anything like this.
Yeah.
The
Wait,
idea of
wait,
a
wait, 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 wait,
directly
wait, wait.
elected.
Whoa, 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 whoa. The world had never known anything like this. We'd never known anything like democracy before. The world had never known this. Okay, I'm sorry. Democracy as a concept was created in Athens, Greece in like 400 something BC. Now, it's not the same as it is in American politics, but in a lot of ways, at the moment that it started in the United States, not actually that different. The whole thing in ancient Greece was that it was like, if you were a slave or you weren't like a part of like certain caste systems, like you weren't allowed to vote. And guess what? When we first started the United States, you could not vote unless you were a property-owning white man. Like, that exact interpretation, that exact version of democracy is pretty much exactly what existed in ancient Greece. So this is like, and I have a feeling that we're going to experience this kind of like American exceptionalism from Congresswoman Goodlander throughout the entirety of this interview. And there's probably going to be zero resistance from the part of the interviewer, Liz, on this topic. This is madness. This is utter madness because it's erasing like human history in favor of American exceptionalism, and that's kind of silly. So like this will probably be the ongoing critique that Congresswoman Goodlander has, this sort of like incredibly rose-tinted view of the United States that seems to somehow ignore vast sections of the history of this country that were absolutely abhorrent and also not even necessarily true. That's kind of an issue, right? Like, because it's for anybody that has any kind of deeper understanding, they'll hear this and they'll be like, wait, what? Kind of the way I am right now. So look, context matters. Wow. Holy cow.
Elected representative from the people, of the people, by the people, for the people was not something that had ever happened before in human history. So we are the body that is closest at the federal level to the American people. So it's every 2 years we have to seek re-election. No one serves in the House of Representatives who has not been elected. There are no appointments to the House, and I think that matters.
Yeah.
We live in a gerrymandered moment, but our roles and responsibilities are in the House. We have the power of the purse. We make the decisions about federal spending. We make decisions about taxation. We make decisions about declarations of war, and we're entrusted with the responsibility of managing our armed forces for the United States. These are all, I should say, these are three really core responsibilities that we have in Congress. We're responsible for creating post offices and postal roads. We have we're responsible for weights and measures.
You guys are
Yes.
in charge of making post offices?
Yes, actually, it's right here in Article 1. It's to establish post offices and post roads. It's right here in Article 1.
Listener, if this is an audio podcast, she is literally holding up the Constitution right before my eyes. She has it in her hand. It is weathered. You have read that before. I can tell.
I do.
Oh my
No,
goodness.
it's in ways big and small in this job. It is a really important point of reference. And I was looking at it today because we were having a conversation about war powers. And, the Constitution makes clear that the president is the commander in chief, but it really entrusts a lot of responsibility for questions of war and peace in the United States Congress. And these are live questions and issues that we're grappling with every day. We are really in a posture right now in Congress where we are fighting to preserve and protect the basic responsibilities that we've been entrusted with. So just take the power of the purse, the power to spend, to appropriate. From January 20th, and I started this job January 3rd.
Yeah.
Since January 20th, we have been dealing with really big questions around the basic usurpation. Like, we're seeing the executive branch, we're seeing it in school districts all across the state of New Hampshire, where money that has been promised to New Hampshire, appropriated for New Hampshire public schools, is being clawed back randomly for no good reasons. We're seeing, when it comes to taxation, the president has imposed.
I mean, I think it's just for no good reason. I mean, like, look, let's be real about it. If you talk to conservatives, they'll tell you there's a damn good reason, and then that's that they believe that public education indoctrinates children into anti-Christian secular views that are also anti-libertarian principles. They'll teach your kids that the New Deal was good. Like, there's, as far as they're concerned, those are pretty damn good reasons to completely withdraw any funding from education. Like, this is silly. Like, defunding public schools has been a pretty, like, consistent conservative position for quite some time. Like, that's kind of hiding the ball. And, like, this is sort of the issue with a candidate or a representative like Congresswoman Goodlander, that there's this, like, horse blinderness to, like, the actual context of history. This is gonna keep happening, man. This point is gonna continue to ring true. It's like all this performative, like, oh, America's so fucking great kind of stuff that ignores a lot of the really grim, awful history of this country, and the fact that a lot of things that we've done are not original. They're appropriated throughout history and then repackaged as though Americans were the first ones to do it when we weren't. And then also that there's just this consensus among people that really just doesn't exist, right? Like, maybe there's, like, a degree of, like, Christian values, I maybe, like, just, like, religious values writ large, I guess, that even atheists will subscribe to. They'll say, like, I actually, like personally, right? Like, I think a lot of the stuff that Jesus was talking about is actually pretty spot on. But I also look at what the teachings of Jesus, and in my mind, I'm like, this guy is kind of a fucking socialist, dude. Like, oh, we gotta feed the poor, we gotta help the destitute. Like, that's all pretty socialist, man. So, anyways, kind of getting a little off base here, but I had to kind of make that point. It's getting silly, man. Oh.
Historic tariffs that are not, in my view, and the Supreme Court will decide this very soon, we think.
Right.
The basic question of whether the president can just take over the power to tax and raise revenue as he sees fit. This is something that is literally just so clearly in this document entrusted to Congress.
Mm-hmm.
And we're living through an extraordinary moment where our core powers and responsibilities are being contested in ways big and small every day.
I wasn't a great high school student when it came to social studies and civics, but I think
I don't believe that. I don't believe that.
I'll call up every history teacher I had, Congresswoman. I promise you, they will confirm my testimony here. But I'm pretty sure I remember that we didn't want a king in the United States.
That's true.
I think I remember that basic premise. So what is it like to have to, I don't know, deal with the things that you're dealing with as all of these responsibilities of Congress? It feels like they're kind of being chipped away a little bit, that it's a little bit of stress to the system. How do you deal with that?
We are seeing challenges to core bedrock principles like we've never seen before. And I'm representing New Hampshire in the most closely divided Congress that we've seen in a generation. And so, so much of what we are able to get done here really depends on convincing 5 or more Republicans to agree with what we're trying to get done. So you
Yeah.
take the release of the Epstein files. So this got a lot of attention. To me, as someone, I served for years at the Justice Department, I believe deeply that sunlight is the most powerful disinfectant. It's an essential part of preserving and protecting and, in many cases, establishing public trust. We were able to advance this law through a mechanism called a discharge petition. So you need to get 218 signatures to have a discharge petition be passed in the House. And some of the best work that we've been able to do, whether it's the bill that we passed last week to push back on the most vicious assault on federal workers that we've seen in American history, which was launched by the president in an executive order. We were able to right the ship to address that through a discharge petition. The same is true for the release of the Epstein files. Right now, we have 2 discharge petitions that would do a whole lot to stem what will, I fear, be a death spiral for tens of thousands of families across our state, for critical access hospitals, for community health centers, who have already been hit this year with the biggest cuts to healthcare in American history.
Yeah.
And who, with one voice, are speaking to say that we've got to extend the healthcare.gov, the Affordable Care Act tax credits that are a lifeline for so many hardworking people, small.
What are we talking about here? Like, go talk to the senators that you work with in Washington. Jane Shaheen and Maggie Hassan fucked us. They literally shot us in the foot. And now we're going to do this, like, this whole, we're going to reach across the aisle and we're going to get everybody to work together to bring healthcare that's got the word affordable in it, but isn't actually affordable to anybody, out to people. And we're going to continue to prop up the private health insurance system that is robbing Americans of a basic need that they have to stay alive. What the fuck, dude? Look, I've said this before, that, like, the ACA is what we've got, so we sort of, like, maybe want to try and, like, continue to give base level funding to it, but, like, make no mistake, it has been terrible for this country. And the degree to which the ACA has failed to provide substantive health coverage, it writ large for Americans, should be it should be self-evident that this is not enough, and that we just need to have a single payer system. We need to do a Medicare for all type of deal where there's only one provider, and that's the government, and we deal with it in taxation so that everybody pays one bill one time every year. It happens in your taxes. If you're a W-2 employee, that's already accounted for in your withholding, right? So, like, what it does is it lets you literally be free from having to think about health insurance. So if you get hurt, you just go to the fucking hospital. You get sick, you go to the hospital and you get the care, and you don't have to sweat a bill. You don't have to sweat going fucking bankrupt. Like, what are we doing, guys? This is crazy. This is crazy shit. Like, I'm sorry, like, I don't get it. I don't understand the weird waffly positions, and there's, like, no articulation of any of this actual, like, critique. There's no consideration of the idea that, like, maybe that system isn't working, and there's not even a structure within this interview for that to be confronted. And the likelihood that Congresswoman Goodlander would come on to a show that would provide any pushback in this way is incredibly low. Like, I have absolutely no illusions that I would ever be able to get her to come on to my show to deal with this. I don't think, and even if she did, let's hypothetically say for a moment that Congresswoman Goodlander was actually willing to come on and do an interview with me where I pose these hard questions. I don't think you'd get any like real substantive response from her, regardless of how much I would push her on that, right? After a certain point, I would have to just kind of let it lie because she'd keep kind of squiggling out of it and I'd run out of time. It's maddening, dude. It's absolutely maddening.
Small businesses
Yeah.
and healthcare providers in our state. So that's all happening through. So what do we do? What I do is I try to bring the basic New Hampshire way to my work here every day, and that means doing the hard work of sitting, eye to eye, palm to palm, knee to knee, and making the case for what I think we need to be doing. And sometimes it's a lot of defense, but it's
since when is that the New Hampshire way? I'm like, oh God, I wish that I had one of the state reps on right now, because if they were here, they would tell you that is not at all what happens in Concord, right? Like the degree to which conservative state reps refuse to engage in any capacity with any type of negotiation that will meet in the middle to like address serious problems, like maybe not all the time, but like on so many issues, they just don't fucking budge. There's no, let's work together to come up with a decent solution for this. No, like that's not the New Hampshire way at all. These are all projections. These are all idealistic projections of what she thinks is the right way for things to be, but it's not actually. It's completely divorced from reality. Like, and it sounds really good, I guess, if you're like a 90s Democrat, if you're like just boomered the fuck out and you're just like dying, wishing for politics to return to a Clinton era where we were civil and we worked together and we used overly verbose language to describe the issues that our society is facing and the way in which capital is not being appreciated, and fuck off, dude. Like, give me a break. This isn't how things work anymore. Like, please enter into the era that we live in the mid 2020s, where shit is totally fucking jacked. I'm begging you. Holy cow.
a little bit of offense too.
Yeah, one of my questions was, what does Congress have to do with New Hampshire? Right? Like you represent New Hampshire, the 2nd district. You go there. How does what you do there impact what happens in our state here?
It drives literally everything that I do. So it drives my priorities, my legislative priorities, what I'm really fighting to get across the finish line. I've been able to do a lot more legislating, honestly, than I expected to, in part because I worked hard to get on 2 committees that are the most bipartisan committees, probably the only bipartisan committees that are left in the House.
Wow.
But it drives literally everything that I do. It drives the questions I ask at hearings, and today we had the Small Business Administration come to talk about their disaster relief programs. And as I'm sure you know, New Hampshire, we're right now in the thick of a historic and still extremely severe drought in many corners of our state, including across the North Country of our state, which I believe Coos County is the comeback can-do county of America. And for too long, federal programs, federal funding that really is funding meant for communities impacted by natural disasters like the one we're living through right now, this drought, have struggled to access what is theirs. And today we had a witness from the Small Business Administration and asked him a series of really basic questions about how a family farmer is going to be able to actually navigate the Small Business Administration's disaster loan programs without an army of lawyers. And so as I'm trying to issue spot, find the opportunities, I'm truly guided in everything I do by the conversations I have, by the letters I receive. We get so much incredible input. We're really lucky to live in a state where people are engaged in a real way. And I have a lot I have a lot of inputs to work from in a way that a lot of my colleagues don't. They don't read the bills as I do. I read every bill that I vote on because I know that I'm going to be asked, why did you vote this way or that way? And I
Right.
always want to be able to explain. And it's honestly, that's been one of the most surprising things about this job, to see that so few people actually read the bills that we write and vote on.
I'm slightly horrified to find out that people vote on things that they haven't read. That's like showing up to my English class and not reading the book in advance. And
I can't fully knock New Hampshire has issues here, because the intent of this podcast is so drastically different from the intent of what I do on this channel. This is entry level stuff right here. This is like trying to genuinely get I guess non-political semi-lib type folks to have some sort of moment that they can use to enter into politics, and real base level stuff, like you forgot everything that you ever learned about in your high school civics class or whatever, right? So there's a value to doing this particular type of content, but I guess the place that I would push back is that that if you're going to do that without the consciousness of the history and the backup to it, then you're running the risk of creating permission structures for people that do not deserve them and have not earned them. And it sends a message to other people that it's okay to look at politics this way. My problem is that kind of uncritical entry point is going to provide a permission structure for constituents to not actually look that much harder rather, and expect everybody to sort of come to them with stuff. And this is that moment where I would strongly advocate for the sort of libertarian and individualist impulse of do your fucking homework. It is not our job. It is not anybody's job to show up and explain this stuff to you. The resources are out there and they are available, and it is incumbent upon you as an individual to go out and read and educate yourself and find your own conclusions, reach your own understanding of what's going on. Don't let somebody else tell you what it should be. Don't let me do it, right? I've got my opinions. My hope is that when people come to this channel and they see this stuff, that they are just as questioning of me and what I do, and critical of my worldview, to a point where they engage in their own form of critical thinking and reach their own conclusion. And maybe at the end of it, they agree with the way I'm coming at it, or maybe they don't. That's fine. But at the very least, think your own way through it. It's not asking a lot, but we should not get people so used to being coddled all the way through their worldly experience. After a certain point, you need to stand up and walk on your own.
and being like, no, I'll be fine. No, you won't. So maybe this gets into my next question, which is when I hear about Congress on the news or the social medias, things feel divisive and tense and stressful. Is that your experience being there? Does it feel that way there, or are we getting a different vibe?
Well, it is a divided time, really. I think, you see it at every level of government. It's never been a harder time to be in a position of public trust, to be a public servant, whether you...
I like that she just used the word vibes. I'm sorry to keep cutting it, but I like that the word vibe just came. And the reason I like the word vibe coming up is because that's what politics has become. This is all just a vibe check. Nobody is going off of facts and history, and that is why we are so fucked. Sorry. This is not like the whole vibe check thing is preposterous. Like, look at what's happening, look at what people are saying, determine whether or not what people are saying actually does anything in regards to what's happening other than letting it continue. There's no material understanding of the situation. There's no like there is no interrogation that's occurring here. It's like it drives me nuts. So I don't whatever. Continue on.
You are, an election, whether you're a moderator for, an election at the local, state, or federal level, whether you're serving, really at any level of government, we've seen, and part of this has to do with the threats of violence and violence that we see happening at a rate like never before against people who serve our communities, who serve our country, who serve our state. And so I think there's a lot.
Dude, just say immigrants. What the fuck? Just say immigrants. What's hard? Like, what? Why is this so politicized? Like, who are you talking to, Maggie? Like, who's your audience in this situation? Like when you think of a constituent, how do you like who are you thinking of? Like, what does the person in your mind look like? When like who are you deliberately speaking to? Are you genuinely speaking to like a white 50-year-old man or woman that is a property owner in a rural area with 2 vehicles and maybe one of them has car payments? They have kids in college. Like, who's the audience for this? Say the word fucking immigrant. It's not that tough, dude. Like, ICE is going into communities and they are rounding up brown people because they're brown. That's what's happening. Just say it. Don't be afraid. It's okay. You can tell us. We're grown-ups. We are able to hear words and understand what they mean. So again, do not coddle the constituents. This like baby talk stuff is exactly why somebody like Zoran Mamdani in New York City was so capable of just like cleaning fucking house, because he did not at any point in time denigrate the intelligence of his constituents. He literally talked to people like they were grown-ups. And that's what's so funny about this is it's like she's talking to you like you're a child, and she's using this like authoritative language to describe what's happening, and really it's just like a whole lot of nothing. There's so little substance here. There's so much extrapolation that you as a listener need to engage in order to like decode what she's putting out there. Like, no, like your audience should not be only like college educated people, like college educated white people. Like, that's not your only voter base. So stop talking to only those people. Dear Lord.
A lot of fear, and there is a lot of division, and that's really what gets the headlines. But I'll tell you, I came to this work. I worked for John McCain early in my career.
Oh,
and,
here we go.
He hired me even though I voted for President Obama twice, and he knew that.
Oof.
And he actually really he really liked the way that he learned and the way that he thought through the issues was through debate and through being challenged and being pushed back at.
Yo, John McCain was such a fucking war hawk that, like, I cannot describe to you, like, his boner would have broken a fucking jockstrap, if he had seen the Trump attempt to drop a bomb on Iran. Like, he would, like, if John McCain was alive for that, he would have been, like, the top fucking advocate for just dropping mad bombs on Iran, right? Like, this is, dude, what are we doing? What is going on here? And, like, honestly, like, Congresswoman Goodlander is kind of a war hawk, right? Like, that's like, she takes money from Israel lobby. She has voted in favor of continued funding for global conflicts. She's former U.S. military. Like, this is the uniparty portion right here. This is the part where there's no daylight between the Republicans and the Democrats. Okay, this is U.S. colonial hegemony in full representation, and there's absolutely no criticism or pushback on the part of the interviewer. So, like, that leads me to believe, and, New Hampshire has issues, can fully reach out to me at any point in time. You can contest this stuff. You guys are welcome to come on. We can do an interview. We can talk about the way you approach doing your show, what your intent is, so on and so forth. That's fine. Like, I'm not out here to vilify, right? But I am trying to provide some sort of critical analysis of what's going on here. And, like, this is going to perpetuate the whole American essentialism thing, right? This is just going to keep this whole thing running. And it doesn't do anybody any good to just keep digging our heels in on issues that have made us look like absolute assholes to the entire rest of the world for decades and decades, right? Like, we've been, like, everybody actually, we're all this stuff with Venezuela, like, don't act for a second like we haven't been completely interfering and fucking with South America entirely, right? For like almost 100 years. Like, this is normal business for us. Yeah, it's a little bit more overt because we're just doing the Iraq replay on South America right now. There's a lot of really egregious sort of rhetorical repetitions and whatnot like that. It makes it a bit more clownish, but realistically, we have been 100% guilty of just absolutely interfering with the sovereignty and ability to self-govern that South Americans in a number of countries have been trying to do for so long. Okay? Like, this is crazy.
He used to call himself New Hampshire senator from Arizona. He loved New Hampshire because he loved to get into it with New Hampshire voters. And he used to talk about Ted Kennedy, who was one of his favorite sparring partners, someone who he worked with closely on a lot of major things, including immigration reform. I mean, they worked together on really everything, but they were intellectual sparring partners. But he used to quote Ted Kennedy, who used to say, you got to find the 30%. With any person in Congress, you can find the 30% where you really do agree. And these days, it's 30% is a huge luxury. If I could find 30% with every one of my colleagues, that would be just amazing. But you might know this, my initials are MTG, and I'm not the only MTG in the United States House of Representatives. There's another MTG from the state of Georgia.
Listener, I'll let you figure out who it is. You'll have to write it out for yourself.
The other MTG. Well, listen, I mean, I've already found a number of bills that I didn't expect to be able to work on with are issues of real consequence. And so to me, I'm not naive about the deeply rooted disagreements, but I think my style is to try to find the areas where we do genuinely disagree and see things differently, but to find and to create wherever possible the common ground that we're going to need. And I haven't given up hope on that. I don't think it gets as much attention because it just isn't. We don't have enough podcasts like this one. We don't have enough journalists who are willing to report on, sometimes the technical, not glamorous areas that are the real work that actually works.
That's silly. That's a silly thing to say. There is actually a decent amount of reporting that does that. People just don't get access to it don't get access to it. They just don't seek it out or read a whole lot about it because it's it's too wonky. It's too nerdy for people. It doesn't sell clicks. Like it doesn't get you views, it doesn't get you clicks, it doesn't get you ad revenue. It's not like it's not sexy, right? That's like the whole thing with that. Um, is a weird thing to kind of bemoan, frankly. Like oh, I just wish we could go back to like, the fairness doctrine when we had Walter Cronkite delivering just the news. And okay, you know what? Like, again, this is all such it has this just like incredibly rosy interpretation of like the way media was and the way politics were. And if we can just get back to that, like, dude, this is exactly what has been criticized of the Democratic Party for like since like maybe even 2016, if not earlier than that. Like, if you want to talk about actual leftists, like, this is all so cooked. This is such an incredibly antiquated way of looking at things. That information is available. Let's start with that. All of that information about like how things are going and how they're working, that's all readily available. You can access that. That's not something that's unreported, right? You might have to work a little bit harder to do it, but like that's on you. Okay? You should gain media literacy. Right? Like, go read Drop Site News, go read like, go to the actual Senate website, go to the website for Congress. You can read these bills. Like, this stuff is accessible. Okay? It's a little the language can be a bit obtuse when you're trying to read it, but like, you know what? You increase your reading comprehension. It's good to learn lawyerese sometimes. You should know how to understand those documents, because our insanely libertarian world has forced people to have to understand that language if they want to actually engage and not be like total political idiots. Like, that is part of the structure of this, is to make it so complicated to understand what's happening that there's not really any point in doing it at all, and then you're just relying on somebody else to interpret it for you, and then you just take their point at face value and then advocate for it and never question whether or not that person is providing a weird interpretation. They're oversimplifying in a way that obfuscates very important details or granularity that can elucidate a much different position, right? Just even simple wording matters, right? And then there's the added problem of the fact that we now look at news and politics in the same way that we viewed entertainment. Like this is all just one big fucking reality show. So then you're having the most salacious stuff be shoved in your face, and you're not engaging in anything critical, and everybody's just making little quick short videos for their feed or whatever to react, to get more clicks. It's this nasty beast of a thing that just kind of eats up our personalities and our minds. And it would be so much better if we could just like have the drive within ourselves to find these things out and not celebrate or sort of bemoan not celebrate the classic interpretations or bemoan the lack of their presence now, right? This is all just wishful thinking, and it's divorced from our current reality.
I wanted to talk to you about John McCain, actually, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Molly and I, we have two boys, 14, 12 years old. And so they don't know a time in politics that isn't like this. So we use the example of John McCain from 2008. He had a town hall type event. And, we tell the boys, like, there was a moment where someone who's like a supporter of John McCain says something about Barack Obama. And John McCain took the microphone and said, "No, ma'am, that's not accurate. He's a decent man." And like, he literally stopped. And I think he did that with a few people at that event. And I bring this up because I can't imagine that happening now. where someone would, running for president. And I'll just say, it feels like it's in the Republican Party right now that that's not happening, that people aren't seeing the humanity in the other side. And I wonder from you, how do you see us moving forward? How do you see, whether it's your colleagues or our country, how do we go back to a time, and not that everything was perfect before, not even close, but a time of that sort of civility and that seeing each other's humanity? How do we get back there, Congresswoman? Or can we get back there?
Look, I think a lot about the reforms that I want to see happen starting here in Article 1 in Congress. Look, if I could wave a wand, I would get rid of partisan gerrymandering and the kind of redistricting that has made us a body filled of people who overwhelmingly think about one election and one election only, and that is a primary election. They don't think about, they don't have competitive districts where they are not lucky like I am to come from a state where not only do you have to talk to everyone, you really have to show up everywhere and be accountable. And we've got to get back there so that we've got people who are representing us. It feels to so many Americans I'm sure,
we got to get back there. We got to go back. We got to go back in time. We got to go back. We have to go back to it. That's not how time works. Time moves in one direction. And once something has changed, fundamentally, you are going to find it damn near impossible to revert it to its original state, especially when it involves the minds of people. And it involves a younger voter base that grew up not knowing who Trayvon Martin was, not knowing 9/11, not dude. When you got kids that their entire notion of the world exists with Trump being the main operator, right? You got kids that were born during the Obama administration, right? So they let's say this kid is born in 2008, Obama gets elected, right? You got 8 years of Obama, right? That's basically the child. Okay, so we're in liberal utopia. We're just doing drone strikes out the fucking wazoo. Everybody loves it. It's fine, right? That's where we're at, and that's your some of your most formative years, 1 through 8, right? So just at the moment that you begin to have any kind of cognizance of what's happening in the world, 2016 Trump election, and then you're in it, right? You go 8 to 12, right? You got Trump, it's madness, right? 2020 hits, you get the pandemic, you're locked inside, your parents are furious all the time because they're just trying to hold everything together. Your entire experience of school falls apart. You get addicted to video games. I mean, I don't even know that you can get addicted to video games. This gets into a whole different thing. But you're spending all your time in weird Discord servers, and you're just consuming social media nonstop. You don't give a shit anymore. Whatever. You finally go back to school, everything seems fake, right? And then you got Sleepy Joe Biden, Brandon himself, just basically making an entire mockery of everything that the Democrats ever were, right? Because he's just so fucking preposterous. And does a couple good things here and there, but generally speaking, makes the Democrats look incredibly bad. And then finally, you get to this past year's election, you get to the 2024 election, you watch them push Joe Biden through. He can't fucking speak through the debate. And then they decide to have him step down, undemocratically put Kamala Harris as the candidate. So you've got the Democrats undemocratically choosing their candidate for the general election. So there's the level of hypocrisy is already through the roof, right? If you are this person that grew up during this time, American politics is the biggest joke in the whole world. This is silly. This is so like Maggie Goodlander's perspective here is so incredibly locked in time and completely devoid of any awareness or any empathy for people who have a different experience, who do not understand these spaces that she existed in, this bubble that she lived in, right? It's wild. I'm getting fried listening to this stuff, dude.
Like taxation without representation, because they don't have representatives who are doing the hard work, are showing up, and are actually duking it out on the basis of ideas, and who come to this work in good faith, actually wanting to do a job. Many of them are picked by, party apparatchiks who don't really think a whole lot about governing. So, I think there are some basic reforms that could help us clean house. I think that will really make a massive difference. I think we should have term limits in Congress. I think term limits are good government. It was hard-earned wisdom for us to impose term limits on the presidency, and it was all for the best. I think we should have term limits on the Supreme Court, too. Let's just put into place some basic principles.
You know what? Hard agree. I've been super critical this whole time. Hard agree. Term limit them all. That's great. That's actually a decent position that she's got. I'm not I'm not out here to just hate indiscriminately on positions, right? But that's genuinely a good one. Term limit them assholes. Holy cow. The Supreme Court is one of the most undemocratic things aside from the Senate that we have in this country, right? So term limiting them, fantastic call. Totally support it. Right behind you on it. But let's get it done. Where's your legislation for it? Let's see that portion.
Principles of good government to make this place work better, to attract the right kind of people of good faith who actually want to do the job and who don't want to park it here for years and years upon end. I think we've got to get rid of the real sources of distrust. So we've got a simple bill right now that would ban congressional stock trading. This is just such a kind of blows the mind that this has all been legal. I came from the executive.
Doesn't blow my mind at all, frankly. It's so surprising that we all know that Nancy Pelosi made all that money doing stock trading. It's like we had no idea. As if that wasn't something that was, we didn't talk about for fucking years. What? Where is she coming from, man? The vacuum from which this mindset appears from is fascinating. It's fascinating to me. What are we doing, guys? What are we doing here? Holy cow. I'm
executive branch from the Justice Department where, this is just not something that as a matter of practice was done. Now we're living in a totally new, we're under the most corrupt administration in American history, where this all seems very quaint now. But we've got to get, the basic sources of conflict with the public good, with the common good, and with public trust out of our politics. And
it doesn't seem quaint. If anything, this stuff seems very that should be refreshing for people to hear, right? That should to say we're gonna ban stock trading for Congress members. It should be a totally galvanizing position for people to adopt. That's not that's something that I think most Americans hear that and they're like, wow, that's a great step in the right direction to end corruption in our government, which has been pretty rampant for fucking decades. What are we doing, guys? Again, I don't know how many times I'm going to say that stupid ass sentence during this fucking stream today.
And that may sound big and bold, but it's pretty simple and straightforward. And I think This is another one where some of my Republican colleagues who I've literally never agreed with on anything else are persuaded that this is the right thing to do. So it's going to be brick by brick. It's going to be inch by inch. But the other thing I think we've got to do is talk to each other more. I mean, I've been showing up and prioritizing going to places, to towns where most Democratic members of Congress, most people don't visit, places where...
I'm going to be real. I could not tell you when she came to my town. No idea. No idea whatsoever. You damn well better bet I would have tried to fucking make it over there as long as I didn't have to work on that day. But I have absolutely no memory of her showing up to a Dems meeting in my town. Which, to be fair, I'm a little bit hesitant to go to that because anytime I go, they get all pissed off at me because I'm like too much of a fucking Bernie bro or whatever. And yeah, I'll even criticize Bernie Sanders. Like, Jesus. It gets wild, man. But yeah, no, I don't know what she's talking about there.
As a party, the Democratic Party may have given up on it. To me, it's my responsibility to represent everyone and to really show up and to learn and to listen. And so that's what I've tried to do. And I think we need more of that just as citizens, showing up and talking to one another. I was in Pelham the other day, and that's not a town that a lot of my predecessors ever really visited. I actually don't know what the vote count was.
You don't have every count memorized of your votes? What? I can't believe that.
I got to. I work for all of them. For all of them.
That's right.
It's a place where I have learned so much.
I think you're out there talking to people all the time. I feel like I always hear that you are all around your district. You are talking to Granite Staters. And it sounds like you're trying to meet folks whether they voted for you or not. And so,
yes.
Where does that come from? Like, it would be easy for me to just hang out with the people who I know like me. But, like, how do you do it? Where does that come from of wanting to talk to folks who might not have voted for you?
The most basic reason for this is it's my job. I represent everybody in the 2nd District. I grew up in a family where we disagreed passionately and consistently at the dinner table, and it's still the same way. We always have an animated holiday. I've in every job I've had, whether it was when I was clerking on the Supreme Court and I was trying to think through a really hard legal question, the way that I think it through is to pressure test it. It's something I learned from Senator McCain as a staffer. I think it's really important, for the credibility of our ideas and honestly for the integrity of my job, which is to represent everybody, whether they voted for me or not. And that's how I've tried to govern. I think it's helped me really pressure test ideas that have been improved upon to see.
Look, if you want to represent everybody, sometimes, sad to say, sometimes you have to drag those constituents kicking and screaming to the policies that are best for them. Because the amount of poor Americans that vote against their own interests every single fucking time are like outnumber those that do vote for their interests by a very significant margin. So if there's 2 ways that you can do this. You can either stand 10 toes down on policy that will actually help your constituents to live a better quality of life every single day on the day-to-day in their like subjective experience out in whatever rural part of the state, or you can capitulate to status quo and do all of this mealy-mouthed bullshit that sits in the middle of the fucking fence and provide absolutely no change to the status quo, which immiserates these people. So you can choose one or the other, but the latter is much more about maintaining your own political profile in order to hang on to a seat, which runs pretty counter to this idea of like term limiting people. It's very contradictory. Okay.
Problems from a totally new angle, to basically be disabused of orthodoxies that I wasn't even aware of. So I think it's part of what makes our country beautiful. I think a lot about the people who helped write this document, and this, by the way, includes the Declaration and the Constitution, so it's a 2-for-1.
There you go. She has it all
It's
right
very
there
good.
in her hand, ready
And
to
I
go.
handed it out to all my colleagues on Constitution Day, so everyone's got a copy here.
And hopefully they all read it, as well as the bills that they're voting on.
We're still working on that,
That's
but this is who we are as Americans, and I think we're really lucky to come from a state where this is still part of our culture and how we do business.
Okay, you mentioned the holidays. You and I have a few things in common. And one of them, I think, is that you have family members who may be of a different political persuasion than you are, or may feel differently or see things differently. And so I want to know, what do holidays look like? And do you have holidays with those family members? Like, what's your advice to folks like me and others who have the family members who we don't agree with, and we may end up seeing each other very soon around the dinner table?
Well, I think deep breaths are really important. Oxygen.
It's good advice for
And-
everybody. Yes.
And not to be underestimated. I come to these conversations with the people who've mattered most to me in my life. Some of the people have mattered most to me in my life. My beloved sister, who
Oh, I got Bridget in the chat. Look, I'm just listening to this. I have not been kind at all this whole time. I try to keep it measured, but like, dude, I'm not being nice. I'm not pulling punches in here. Don't worry. You say what you need to in that chat. That's what it's there for. Holy
we
shit.
have been sparring partners in every way. I'm the middle child, so she used to call me Scrappy. She still does when she feels like she needs to remind me of the birth order.
Yep.
It is humbling to me, and it's important to me to be able to have but I don't want to undersell how difficult it is, and all of anyone who's in this situation knows it is very challenging. It's challenging for me personally
Dude.
right now, as someone who just in the course of doing my job, I've been on the receiving end of violent threats from the president that have really had an impact on me, on our team, on our community in New Hampshire. We had shortly after the president issued a series of tweets. I don't even know if they're truths. I guess they're called truths. I don't really call them
something.
that.
Dude, if you guys are gonna do a political show, you should know this shit. If you're gonna be a congressperson, you should know the difference between the social networks. What the fuck? Like, if you are going to be media, if you are going to go on media, maybe, just maybe, have some media literacy to accompany that. Like, this is all fucking performance, dude. Like, what are you signaling? You're signaling that you're blasé about the entire fucked up infrastructure that the conservative side of our country has set up in order to push their own form of propaganda, which has been incredibly effective and made it very, very difficult for you to do literally any of your job? You don't think maybe it's a good idea to, like, know that shit? Like, what? What is going on here? What is this shit? I'm so lost, dude. Like, what kind of silly lib performance is this? Oh, wow.
He said it somewhere. Yep.
Social media posts. The impact on us was immediate. We had a bomb threat to our office in Concord. I've been on the receiving end of death threats. He's the most powerful person in the world, and his words mean something and have a real impact on the world and the lives of everybody.
So look, like, I'm not trying to discredit the fact that she received death threats. Okay, that's real shit. You know who else received death threats? In a sense, like in a more broad way? Literally anybody that's on the left in the state of New Hampshire by the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire. They literally said on their fucking Twitter account that they should be taking guns to people that are on the left. They should be threatening people and pushing them out of the state. Like people that just do streams like the one I'm doing now get death threats for like literally existing. Look at fucking like Hassan Piker or somebody like that. Do you know how many people threaten these folks all the time? Like, come on, like, that's such a like, yes, every like member of Congress is probably receiving death threats. Like, is a weird thing to pull out of pocket, I guess. Like, it's like in a lot of ways, like, this is all like granted, this is kind of like baked into the pie. So, you know, like, I guess I don't want to shit on it too much, but in a sense, spare me, dude.
And, you know, one could fairly ask the question, you know, how could someone I love so much see the world so differently and see this this question of who should be the president of the United States so differently than I do? I'll tell you, we had the initial conversation after the election last year at the Thanksgiving dinner table, and Christmas is going to be equally animated. And I'm still searching for the answer to that question, but I think it's an important one to understand. I am grateful that I have this challenge because it helps me in my job to really understand. You know, we live in a purple state. We live in a state. It was the closest state that President Trump lost in the election, and
we have to talk to folks. Yeah,
we do.
We have to talk to folks who may not agree with us, whether they're related to us or not.
I would argue that we live in a red state. I would pretty confidently make the argument that we live in a red state. And the reason that I will make that argument is because Jeanne Shaheen, Maggie Hassan, Chris Pappas, and yes, you, Congresswoman Goodlander, all seem to vote on a, generally speaking, center-right policy position. Okay? Just because you are, like, blue in name does not necessarily mean that you are, like, particularly democratic. I mean, you are particularly left in any sense. Like, that's silly, right? That's a preposterous notion. And then if you look at the actual state, the degree to which the Republicans within state politics have gerrymandered the state to such a degree that they have had a vicious grip over the legislature and the governorship to maintain it being red, the Senate maintain red control, we're not really that purple. And if you look at the history of, say, the governorship, you will notice that, like, it was only within recent memory that people like Jeanne Shaheen or Maggie Hassan or John Lynch, all of whom are very centrist, right, actually even collected on the governorship. This has been a pretty consistently red state historically. Now, like, sure, you can make the argument that, like, well, Lincoln's Republicans are a lot more akin to Democrats now, but I don't fucking care, man. Like, I really don't care. Like, in terms of policy, in terms of actionable policy, if we look at it from, if we step back and we think about it in a much more global sense, we think about it in a historical sense, we are an incredibly conservatively minded state because of the libertarian streak that runs straight through. And so you have to take the time to individually interrogate the policies and ask, like, okay, like, how does this, where does this policy position fall in terms of determining where someone sits on a left to right spectrum? And I think you'll find that for the vast majority of it, it will elucidate to you just how much similarity and there is between the red and the blue teams. It's all theater, right? We are a colonialist enterprise as a country. Like this is what we do. We are the hegemon. And everybody's been so conditioned from public school experience up until now to reinforce and maintain these structures. The Overton window in people's minds has shifted so far without them knowing it that even Democrats are oftentimes, in a much more global sense, right of center. And that's kind of the point. Now, I see Bridget in the chat. She's making the point that, our voters are very mixed and just not active. And you know what? That's true. That's true to a certain extent. But I would sort of add to that it's because truly FDR style politics have been so beaten out of this country. We're so far away from it, right? Like in the same way that I was talking about that person that's born in 2008 that grew up like having no notion of politics the whole time Obama's president, and then the second they have any kind of cognizance of what's happening in the world, Trump is their president, and we're now into reality TV politics, right? In the same way that person has absolutely no frame of reference to understand something like 9/11 or, historical redline, everything you see in history books, people are so divorced from the labor movement in Chicago, the violence that occurred to lock in the 5-day work week. They're divorced from the idea of the New Deal and the economic prosperity that brought to our country. They're divorced from the concept of the top marginal tax rate being something like 90% or whatever, right? Like, there was a time where we were like really fucking with it. And because these people that actually buy into that part of the American history are so disillusioned in the contemporary that they feel so disempowered that they will literally not show up to vote because they don't feel like there's any point, because they look at the candidate like Maggie Goodlander and they're like, yeah, I'm not getting what I need out of that. So like, I guess like maybe I'll go throw my token vote in if I have enough free time on that particular Tuesday. This is what disenfranchisement.
That's one way forward, at least. All right, we have one other thing in common, and I know that we're close to our time. You used to teach. You taught constitutional law, which makes sense as you literally have it in your hand. I was a teacher, not of constitutional law, of English literature. What did you love about teaching?
For me, teaching the Constitution was it's a learning experience for me. I mean, I fell in love with constitutional law, in my early 20s. I got caught in the grip of it, and it's really for any age. And I love to teach constitutional law and to talk about the Constitution with people who are not lawyers, because this was a document that was written in part by lawyers, but mostly actually by citizens, by people who had the rough and tumble experience of the revolution, who really disagreed on pretty fundamental questions, but who were able to come together and to write this document. It was written to be read by everybody, and it's why it was published in newspapers around the country, and why we had a process of ratification that was really about involving the people. You can't have a government of, by, and for the people if you don't have buy-in from the people themselves. And so what we have is it's the most extraordinary inheritance that any person could have. It's not perfect. In fact, it's intentionally meant to make us more perfect every day. And it's like the first sentence of the Constitution is that what we are about is about, it's a we. We start with the we, and that comes back to, why it's our responsibility to sit with and to really engage with people, especially ones who we don't agree with. But it's about a journey towards something that is more perfect, a recognition that we are flawed, but that we contain the base.
Again, this is a bubble that she's talking. This is like why I am critical of academic institutions, because the academic institution is so like consolidated in its space that it becomes so unaware of the degree to which the rest of the world is not literate in that particular academic bubble, right? I would challenge Maggie Goodlander to, on her next tour throughout the state, and to come up with some very, very, very basic questions about the Constitution, and ask her constituents if they understand any of it, if they can recite it to her, if they can dictate it to her. Because I'm like, dude, I bet you it's not even close to 50% of people that are able to actually tell you what's in the Constitution. And this kind of bubble is really gonna, like, to get back to, like, the whole voters that are engaged and blah 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 blah, like, these people don't have time to be constitutional law scholars. They are focused on their 9 to 5, which is probably physically grueling, emotionally and mentally exhausting. They get home, they got to cook dinner, they might have kids, you got to pay attention to your kids, you want to relax, you want to decompress, you got some hobbies you want to try and take care of, you got to do your taxes, you got to pay your bills, you got all this other shit. Dude, ain't people got time for that. And nobody's got the time to dig in on that stuff unless you are literally a political fucking wonk. And, like, what's funny is I'm saying this, the only people that are even going to tune into me saying this are still people that exist within the periphery of that bubble. That's how fucking wild this is. Like, awareness. Like, have the spatial and environmental awareness to understand that things that you are saying can and likely are incredibly hollow.
Basic ingredients and the basic ideas. And I learn something new about the Constitution every time I teach it, every time I talk about it. That's what I loved about it. But I wish I had been your student, because I feel like
I don't know.
Blaze.
I haven't read a novel in a really long time.
All right, we'll trade. I'll read the Constitution this holiday season. You choose any novel of your choice, and you read that. How about that's our homework
Deal,
for each
but
other?
I'm going to need your syllabus. I'm going to need your syllabus.
I'll send it to you. No problem. I've got plenty of great books that you will be delighted by. Congresswoman, thank you so much for
Thank you,
taking
Liz.
the time, talking with me, listening to the podcast. Oh, my goodness. And please take care of yourself and your staff and stay strong in these wild times. We really appreciate all that you're doing.
Well, one thing about me is I will never get up the ship, and I feel like the luckiest person in the world to be doing this job. And I'm really glad that I got to spend some time with you, and I hope the next time it will be in the flesh.
I hope so too. We will make that happen. We will swap notes of what we read.
Wow, that was a roller coaster. Holy fucking hell. That was an experience, all right. Okay. Holy shit, I've been going. Yeah. Never give up the ship unless a pact owner asks her to, at least. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, it's I just, like, common sense, folks. Like, we gotta get, like, we gotta get back to a point of, like, basic understanding. That was I mean, I don't know what I expected, I guess. I kind of thought this was gonna be a slightly more, like, progressively minded podcast, but it really just feels like a fucking MSNBC extension podcast. That didn't feel any different than what you would get on, like from, like, a CNN puff piece, you know? Like, that's really, yeah, that one didn't really hit for me personally. All right, anyways, so let's that took me a lot longer than I wanted it to. I can't believe that it took me an hour and a half to get through a 30-minute fucking podcast, but here I am. So I'll try and do this next section a little quickly. But it's probably also filled with rage bait for me and will likely cause secondary rage bait for viewers or whatever. But what are we gonna do about it? We just got to get into it. So okay, let's deal with this this WMUR hit piece stuff on WMUR. Yeah, no problem. I'm glad to sort of have a look at stuff. I think people need to kind of be aware of some of the stuff that happens on the periphery, and like if people really fucking want me to, I'll try and come back on and do more like reaction segments to actual stuff that's happening, just so that we don't get too caught up in just like the original material without any real interrogation of what's going on in it. But yeah, here we go. Let's see what this bullshit is about.
Right now, you can go online to read it in its entirety. Just go to.
Oh, or at the end. Gotta fucking start it. Okay.
Monica, we sat down with Jonathan Kiper last week. He says this book was meant to make people laugh and that no one has ever told them that they were offended by it.
Are you a prostitute? Because I would definitely be willing to pay cash money to have sex with you. Those are the words written by Democratic candidate for governor Jonathan Kiper in a book that he self-published in 2013 entitled Poetry for Leotards.
I sold hundreds of copies of that book. Thousands of people have read it. I sold it at my restaurant for 4 or 5 years. No one's ever been offended by it.
Kiper says the book of poems is meant to be funny and was written during a difficult time in his life.
I mean, I fucking
Read it,
laugh.
though, and you'll find it's filled with sexual innuendos, foul language, references to drugs, and uses the R word several times, a derogatory term for people with disabilities.
All I know is that word was...
Hold on a minute. Is WMUR woke now? Is woke back on the table? I mean, like, let's be real. Like, the entire centrist and right wings of the country have like completely like adopted woke, and now they're trying to use it as this really funny weapon against the left. Like, what the like, this is hilarious, dude. I'm dying. Are we? So let me get this straight. Hearst, the outlet that defended Hitler back during World War II and wouldn't let people publish articles that were critical of Hitler, are now coming out and letting people know that the R word was derogatory to people with disabilities. What? I am so lost on this. Like, what? What? Now, look, I do not use that word in my regular daily parlance. That said, I grew up in a time where it was very much so commonplace to use that word. And that doesn't make it okay. But look, like, something that I think this is sort of the issue that I take with woke culture, is that it completely cuts off the ability for anybody to grow, for anybody to change their position, for anybody to say, hey, I was wrong and I'm going to try and do better now. And when you stifle that, you are behaving in an anti-coalition manner that utilizes purity testing to sort of file down the group of people that you can potentially captivate to be on your side to help further your agenda, right? And furthermore, it's doing it on identity lines, right? It's doing it in a very non-material field. It's all about the feelings, It's all about making sure that we coddle your fifis, right? And you know what hurts my feelings? Being fucking hungry. You know what hurts my feelings? Wondering whether or not I will be able to die in a dignified way because I won't be able to have any kind of retirement for myself. I won't be able to have any health care in my advanced age. That hurts me on an intellectual, emotional, and physical level far more than any of this other nonsense. And like, I just like, look, like I have friends who are disabled. Like, I don't use that word because I don't want to denigrate them. But there was a time where I was an ignorant motherfucker and I would use that word. And I've grown past it, and it sucked that I said it. It sucked that I was that ignorant. Like, that's a bummer. But like, this is preposterous. And it's also a manner in which they're trying to like characterize his entire campaign. It's like oh, don't vote for this guy. He uses the R word. What? I'm pretty sure he's out here like advocating for policies that would literally do the most good for regular working people in the state of New Hampshire. I don't get it. Like, why is the performative action more important than the material result for people? That's what confuses me.
Was in common usage then. We use it to mean stupid. And frankly, the references in the book are generally referring to myself.
Kiper says that he believes the use of words changes over time, and he sees that word as offensive now. He updated the book to remove at least one reference to it, but he stands by the content, saying that this is about art.
It's really important for me to believe that people can be creative and that we're not going to hold someone at 40 accountable for what they did in their 20s.
Well, in fairness, though, you are running for the highest office in the state of New Hampshire, and you're running to represent the state of New Hampshire. What do you say to people who might not think that the language that you used, even then, you were 29 years old, you were still an adult, might not be represented?
What? Oh, he was 29 years old. His brain wasn't fully fucking formed. Hi. Anybody that knows about men knows that they are not complete intellectually. like your brain does not stop forming until you are in your 30s. That's real shit. Like, and like, to be honest, like, this is the part that might be upsetting for some folks, but like, I actually think it's more important to like, in the same way that I think it's bad to like delete like posts or tweets, right? I don't believe that it's a great call to censor yourself sort of like retroactively. You shouldn't retcon your position, because that's part of your evolution. And whether or not you said something wrong, you should still stand by the fact that you did say it at one point, because that gives you the actual framework to grow from. And if you're not willing to admit that at one point in time you were shitty, and now you are less shitty, then like there's no way to indicate that growth. And it creates this sort of like veneer of polish on people that just is false and fake. And it promotes fakeness in politics. And I would rather see somebody be a fallible human being. Like, ain't nobody a hero, dude. We're all dirtbags. Like, everybody's done something shitty at some point or another. Like, nobody's a fucking angel. And like, it's like we got to start accepting that reality just like a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, look, I have also made content that I look back on and I'm like, I'll cringe at it. You know what I mean? But I also try to stand on principle and be like, look, like, yeah, I did that. But now that time has passed and I can look at it in a different way, I can actually like provide some additional interpretations as to why there's value in it existing, because it provides as a benchmark for what we need to grow past. And it gives an indicator of the ways in which we as people can evolve to a point that we can actually create societal advancement in a truly progressive, by definition, manner.
For someone who wants to hold that office.
If we're going to hold people accountable for things that they did more than a decade ago, then it would be very hard for anyone to move on from their past.
He wants anyone who might be taken aback to give it a read.
And I'll tell you this, if you or anyone else is offended by this, please read it. I will refund your money, and I want your offense to be written to me in the form of a poem. And I will comprise all of the poems of people that are offended by my poetry into a grand poetry book called, something like People Offended by Poetry Poems. Because ultimately, this is about art and about creativity.
Now, we have a full digital article.
I'm still making my monthly donation and voting for him, but even I DM'd him to be like, hey, you could have handled this better, to be honest. Yeah. Good. That's real shit. Like, that, you gotta, dude, like I said this earlier. Politicians are tools. Okay? Doesn't mean that the person beneath that is a tool, right? But if they are seeking office or they are holding office, they are a fucking tool for you to use in order to get policy that meaningfully affects your life. Period. So, like, this isn't sports, dude. Right? Like, and even with sports, fuck, like, even with sports, people will criticize the team they love. They'll talk so much shit about players and coaches and whatever. Like, yo, like, bring a little bit of that energy into your political space. Like, these are not your Olympians. These are not your champions. Like, these are people that are there to do a job. And if they're not doing the job, then, like, you need to be critical of them. Right? Like, and if they want that job, they need to have the fortitude as a human being to hear that criticism, take it in, not fucking flip out at you, and then do something about it. Like, what the fuck? It's simple shit. Simple shit. So, let's see here. Yeah, all right. So here's Jon's response, and we'll have a little look at what Jon had to say about this little bitty hit piece that WMUR did.
Things about running for governor right now, for me, let me explain it to you because it's very frustrating, is that the state reps, a lot of them, not all of them, and the senators, some of them, not all of them, look down on me because I have not been a state rep or a senator. They think, oh, you're jumping the line. You know, you need to be a state rep or senator. You don't have any idea what we're doing in Concord. You don't understand the legislation. You don't understand the process. You're totally crazy to run for governor without having served in one of these other two offices.
Well, I actually think that, I mean, we can talk about this shit too, but I think this was actually different. Now I gotta look around. Fuck. There we go. That's the one.
What's happening? So WMUR's piece about my poetry finally dropped. I was hoping that they weren't going to release it. But actually, I'm not that upset about it because as a writer, okay, having people read my poems is the whole point. Okay? And frankly, I wish more people would read my poems because I think that they're pretty funny. And so we're in I'm in a funny place where on the one side, the poet, the writer in me is thrilled to finally get some attention to my art. However, the politician in me obviously understands why some people would be offended by some of the words in this book, because some of the words are offensive, okay? Sometimes words are offensive. But I'm not going to apologize for my art. I'm not going to apologize for being a creative person. I don't want to tell some 18, 19, 20-year-old person to not write poetry because you might run for governor someday. It should be totally safe space for us to explore strange, funny, interesting, weird, quirky ideas, okay? But I want to talk about not what they aired, but what they did not air. What they did not air, and I mentioned it multiple times. I brought the book with me, and I showed them this book. This book is called A Ghost in the Darkness, the true story of the Vicky Bader murder, which happened
on the table
in Stratham, New
the
Hampshire
whole
when I was
time
growing up.
in that interview.
Now, I brought this book with me. The photographer, you can see it in the background in the interview. The videographer got video of this. I talked about it multiple times. I said, hey, let's talk about this book. This is what I think is a major miscarriage of justice in New Hampshire. I think there's a guy named Seth Bader who's serving a life sentence. He's been in there for more than 30 years for a crime that I don't think he committed. And WMUR cut out every reference to this book, to that man, and to the case completely. Why? Because they don't have the guts to actually do the journalism that would be required to talk about a book like this.
LOL.
But this book, I think, is much more offensive, frankly, than this book, because this book outlines that a man, as I said earlier, is serving a life sentence for a crime I don't think he committed. And it just shows that this book maybe got them more clicks, but I think this book actually would be more important.
I love this messy bitch shit that he does. Like, yo, this is hilarious. Right? Like, this is some Trump playbook shit. Like, this is like in a way he reminds me even more of that who's that guy? The Canadian guy. What's his name? Rob Ford. Like, I really I really hope that he doesn't end up like Rob Ford. Like, let's fucking be real. Like, I don't want that. But like, just like that messy shit. Like, that's kind of like, that's lovely. That's refreshing to me, because like it makes him a personality, right? And this is like, I get like a little sad that like he's really only prominent on TikTok, right? Because like TikTok itself is a bubble. You know, like he's got something like 7,000 followers or whatever, which is not enough to tip the scale of a primary. I think Ari was talking about this. It's like you need something like 30,000 people to actually shift the needle. Like that's what you can do to, like, that's your number that you got to hit, right? You got to activate that many people. I'm like 30K, 34K, something like that. I can't remember. My brain gets filled with too much shit and then it doesn't retain it. But like this sort of messiness, this willingness to just like haul off and cream WMUR for being cowardly journalists is fucking baller. Like, it's so pimp. And like, I mean, part of me is like, dude, you got my vote for just doing that shit like that. You know, like, and that's the part of me that probably like echoes in Trump voters, right? Like, that's why like people voted for Trump, is they're like, you know, I like how he talks straight. I like how he just comes right at it. He doesn't filter himself. Like, well, fucking, that's it. He gets the reality TV politics in that sense, and I think that's good. That's he, you know, learned a thing or two from Jersey Shore.
The people of New Hampshire, and the fact that they edited out every reference to that, I think is a huge red flag. I think that's really sketchy. It makes me really wonder about, what do they know? Why wouldn't they want to talk about this? Even if I'm wrong, okay? And I'm about 75% sure this guy didn't commit the murder. I'm not 100% sure, but there's some people that are. But why not mention that book? Is this
because it's too much work, John? It's too much fucking work. You're asking, you like, he answers his own question. Like, he answers his own fucking question a little bit. Like, they're gonna half-ass it because they like it makes them have to do more work, right? Like you just opened up a whole fucking can of worms for them, and like they don't do hard-hitting investigative journalism. They do like puff pieces. They like aggregate crime stories from outside the state to put on TV. Like, come on, man. Like that's not the news outlet they are.
Would this not be better for the voters to know that I tried to get a man out of prison and failed, and so I wrote this book as a last Hail Mary? Would not the voters find that information pertinent to their decision and slightly more important than this stupid poetry book? I don't know. It's sketchy to me. But anyway, both of these books you can order at jonkiper.com. I'm not ashamed of my poetry. I'm not going to ever say that people shouldn't write poetry. Write poetry. It can be as stupid as you want. That's how it works. It's just words on paper, baby. That's it. And in fact, go write a poem right now. Do it. And you know, if you invoke a feeling in people, then that's probably a good thing. Even if it's, you know, outrage. At least that's something.
Yeah. I mean, look, like let's like actually look at this. Okay. So here's the article. Here's their longer form article. Oh boy. This is such a pain in the ass, man. I really just like this shit gets exhausting, man. All right. So they're just going through his like, dude, this is funny. I'm sorry, man. This is kind of funny, dude. Like, I can't help it. I can't, I'm sorry. Like, let me decensor this for y'all because I will literally never fucking get monetized on YouTube. Like, the amount of F-bombs in this stream alone is uncountable. It's like, in another poem, Kiper seems to question the act of communion. Jesus fucking Christ, on the cross, what's the deal with all that goddamn blood drinking and eating your fucking flesh? Seems kind of fucked up, bro. Like, yeah. Sorry, dude, it does. Like, that's not, like, come on. Like, what are we doing? Like, I don't know, man. I'm not a religious person, dude. I grew up in the Unitarian Universalist church, right? And from like a very early age, my understanding of religion was like, you look at all of it and you take what makes sense from some and you incorporate it into your practiced ideology and you leave behind the parts that don't make sense. It's very like egalitarian, I guess. Whatever. Thank you for showing up, Bridget. So ultimately, like, this kind of stuff is like a little fucking wonky in my opinion. And I just like, I don't know, man. I can't I don't know. Like I think it's silly to get all up in arms about this stuff. And that's really like they cherry picked that to make sure that they got him bad with the Christians in the state. That's just, you know. And they what is it? It looks like this is the only point at which they really mention his other book, and they don't dive into it any further. So I'm pretty sure that that right there is about the most you're gonna get in terms of the actual content that he wanted other people to be aware of. So yeah. This shit is silly, man. This shit is super silly. And it's a hit piece. That's the whole point of this, is to make him look bad so that we can create some space for somebody like Cindy Warmington or Declan McCahern, whatever, to come in and provide the measured centrist candidate for the fucking Democrats, so that we can keep having a goddamn uniparty in the state. Ugh, I'm so fucking tired of this stuff, dude. It's really just, it's exhausting. And I sure as hell hope that at some point or another we can get to a place where people are like engaging in degrees of like critical thinking and media literacy to actively question this stuff, so that it's not like my pussy little YouTube channel with like fucking 12 live views on the video that actually addresses the problem. It'd be nice if we could like bring this stuff to people culturally, because like I work with dudes that would see this and be like what he's saying right there about the whole thing with like using the R word and like how it meant stupid at a point in time. Like I work with people that still operate on that mentality. Like they're still very much so entrenched in that belief system, and they will tell you that like they're too old to change. So like unless you're willing to like meet those people, then like fuck the coalition, dude. Like if you want to purity test out everybody that could possibly get you the W, then you are insisting on losing on like some weird moral ground that will always fuck you. And you're never going to have what you want. You're going to be a perpetual loser. So stop. Like just chill out. Like as much as it's on them to accept the fact that the world around them has changed and what they're doing is unacceptable, it's incumbent upon the other side to understand that trying to hasten the advancement of society faster than it's capable of moving is just as ignorant. And it's not existing in the here and now. So like fucking A, dude. Like give me a break. Anyways, I am cooked on this politics stuff for now. I really don't I don't think I have the energy to do much more today. I went for fucking 2 hours. It's 2:15. I got other shit I got to do. But cheers, y'all. I really like appreciate anybody that actually takes the time to tune into this. I really do. Because it you know, like I'm just like some goober art student that turned into a carpenter. Like I just have this weird obsession with politics. And I do my best to like read and follow things and pay attention and use my whole damn brain to understand things, and I do my best to empathize. I do my best to like examine. And I think that like that's the whole point of this channel is to appeal to people that experience resonates, where you're just like a regular fucking person that sees a bunch of shit happening and feels fucking crazy and decides to continue to engage with it anyways because you literally want to live in a better world. That's it. So, cheers, y'all. If you like my content, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I really encourage you to consider contributing to the Patreon. Patreon.com/locallysourced. I would love to be able to do this a lot more of my time. I would love to be able to invest my energy more in drilling into like actual issues, maybe try and approach a degree of journalism. I don't call myself a journalist because I'm not a journalist. I definitely act way more in an editorial sense, but I would love to be able to provide more content to people. Like, I think that there's willingness for this type of stuff within the space, and I think it's healthy to actually have a much more measured, like, clinical approach to things, even if, like, I don't hide my positions or my ideology as I'm doing it. Like, if something is incongruent with the world in which I see and the way I see it, like, I have to interact with that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't necessarily love having to express positions that I have. I think it would be fun to have a much more utopic situation, but I also don't think it's a good idea to ignore reality. And so that's what I try to bring to this space. So again, if you're somebody that likes this type of content and you'd like to see more of it, please consider becoming a monthly supporter, helping to fund the time to actually invest in this. And I can do more stuff like the video on weapons in New Hampshire. You know, like that took me a fucking minute. And if I didn't have a million other things that I had to do, it would have come out a whole lot sooner. But it's what it is. I would have a lot more time to book interviews. I would have a lot more time to do fun stuff. I would actually have time to do streams like this. I would be able to dedicate time and space to doing it. So that's the motivation for becoming a subscriber, is that you'd literally get more content. So there it is. Thank you, folks. I sincerely appreciate the people that tuned in today and anybody watching in the background. And catch up with you next time, y'all. Have a good one. Happy holidays. Cheers. Wow, I fucked this one up bad.